Welcome to the week 4 lesson 2. So this video is going to be pretty short. I'm just going to cover the solving rational exponent equations and show you how to solve some stuff on the calculator. So a rational exponent, looking at this little piece up here, that just means that your exponent is a fraction. So like here you've got m over n. You can rewrite that using this formula here in radical form. So rational form or a fractional exponent would be the a to the m over n. So this right here, we're going to call this rational. And then this form here, this is radical form. So I've got like a square root symbol or a cube root symbol, something like that. Having it in one form or the other might be more beneficial depending on what problem you're solving. So let's take a look at number 1 here. So I want to rewrite this as x to some power so that it's a little bit easier for me to solve. So x to the 1/3 power, I can rewrite that. We're going to use this formula, so I'm going to call this a over b. I would rewrite this as a is the exponent on the inside, and then b is the root on the outside. So if I rewrite x to the 1/3 power, that would become x. The exponent that's going to go on it is 1. And on the outside, we're going to have a 3. I can also write this as just the cube root of x, because the x to the first power is just the same thing as saying x. Any number to the first power is itself. So I can rewrite this problem as the cube root of x plus 2 equals 0. Now to solve this, I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. And then I need to get rid of the cube root that's there. I need to get the x that's inside of it completely out of the root. So I'm going to do the opposite of taking the cube root of something, which is raising it to the 3rd power. So basically, I'm just trying to get the number that's inside of the radical to match the exponent that's out there. What I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So I'm going to do the same thing to the right-hand side and raise that to the 3rd power as well. So now these guys are going to cancel, and I'm going to have x equals -2 to the 3rd power, means I'm multiplying -2 times -2 times -2. So 3 negatives multiplied together make a positive, and then 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So this is going to give me x is equal to 8. Okay. Now let's look at number 2. So this problem is very similar. I'm going to rewrite this as the cube root of x minus 4 equals 0. I'm going to add 4 to both sides to get rid of the 4 next to it. So I'm going to have the cube root of x is equal to 4. To get rid of that cube root symbol, I'm going to raise both sides to the 3rd power. So again, I'm looking for these two numbers to be matching. So I'm going to cross these out. I'm going to have x equals 4 to the 3rd power is 4 times 4 times 4 gives us 64. So you should get x is equal to 64. Let's take a look at number 4. This has a little bit more involved with it. I'm going to go ahead and move the 96 first. And then I want to get the x by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 3. Okay, so notice that when I divided by 3, I did not touch the 3 in the exponent at all. I just messed with the coefficient that was in front. So do not do anything with the exponents that's on there. You just want to do the coefficient. So once you get to this point, I need to get that exponent of a 5 over 3 away from the x. If you want to, you could rewrite this in radical form, but I'm going to show you a different way to do it. So if I want to get rid, let's just go back to like regular fractions. Let's say that I had 2/3, and I wanted to figure out 2/3 times blank gets me to the number 1. I would multiply by the reciprocal of 2/3. So I would multiply by 3 over 2 So these would cancel and these would cancel, and I would be left with 1. I'm going to use the same kind of logic here. So I want to get rid of the 5/3 in the exponent. So I'm going to raise this to the 3/5, or the reciprocal of 5/3. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So now what happens, in the exponent, I've got 5/3 times 3/5. Those are going to cancel each other out, and my exponent is just going to be 1. And if the exponent's 1, I really don't even need to write it. So these cancel, and I'm left with x equals. In your calculator, you can type -32 in parentheses, just like I have it, to the 3/5. And you should get -8. Okay, so my answer is x equals -8. Let's take a look at number 6. So in this case, we're going to try to get rid of the exponent again. If this is being raised to the 4th power right now, if I want to do 4 times blank, let me write that, gives me 1. What I can multiply by is the reciprocal of 4, which is 1/4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise this entire thing to the 1/4, and I'm going to do the same thing to the right-hand side. So now what happens is the 4 and the 1/4 are going to cancel each other out, and you're going to have x minus 7 equals 16 to the 1/4. Type that in your calculator, and you should get 2. So now this looks like a regular one-step equation. I'm going to go ahead and add 7 to both sides, and you're going to get x is equal to 9. Let's look at number 8. So on number 8, this is a unique situation because you have the same exponent on both sides. Both of them have a 1/3 on there. So if I wanted to get rid of the 1/3, remember that 1/3 is the same thing as a cube root, so I could rewrite it like this. Okay, if I want to get rid of the cube root on both sides, I can just raise both sides to the 3rd power, and all of these are going to cancel, and you're going to get x plus 2 is equal to 3x. The kind of shortcut way of doing this, when you're looking at the problem and you notice that the exponents are the same, just go ahead and cross them out. They're going to end up being canceled out anyway since they're the same. So if you see that they're the same from the beginning, just go ahead and cross those out, okay? So to solve this the rest of the way, I want to get all the x's on one side, so I'm going to subtract x from both sides. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So we're going to get x is equal to 1. Okay, last question. Let's look at number 9. So in this case, I can't use the same trick as before because the exponents are different. I can't really even multiply by the same reciprocal on both sides because one side I'm going to have 5/2 and one side I'm going to have 5/1. So I'm going to try to get, notice between the 2/5 and the 1/5, the number that they have in common here is the 5 that's on the bottom. So if I were to multiply 2/5 by 5/1, I'm going to get rid of the fraction piece. So this would become, these would cancel, this would become 2/1, which is just 2, okay? If I did 1/5 and I multiplied that by 5, or you can think of it as 5/1, everything would cancel and I'd be left with 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the first side. I'm going to multiply that by 5/1. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. So I'm not breaking any rules. I'm still multiplying by the same thing on both sides, so I'm not changing it. Okay, so I multiplied both sides by 5/1. So what's going to happen here, this fraction is going to turn into a 2. This one is going to turn into a 1. So you're going to have x minus 3 to the 2nd power equals 4x to the 1st power. I can rewrite this and leave out the exponent of a 1 because 4x to the 1st power is just 4x. And then I can kind of solve this from here. So this one is going to be a little bit tricky. We're going to have to do some expanding, some foiling. X minus 3 squared is x minus 3 times x minus 3. If I FOIL that out, or box method, or whatever you like, you're going to get x squared minus 6x. Remember, when you're combining negative 3x and negative 3x, you're adding them. You are not multiplying. So if you are in debt $3 and you spend 3 more, you're now in debt $6. But if you were to multiply those together, like where we multiply the negative 3 and the negative 3, that's when it turns to a positive 9. So be careful when you're combining. Okay, so this x minus 3 squared is the same thing as x squared minus 6x plus 9. So I'm going to rewrite that and replace it with the expanded version. Okay, now I want to get all of my x's on one side. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. Negative 6x minus 4x. You're in debt $6 and you borrow 4 more. You're in debt 10 total. And now this is equal to 0. Okay, so now we have a quadratic. What should you think about when you see quadratic? We should think factoring. Quadratic just means that I have this little exponent of a 2 up here. So we need to factor this to solve it. So I'm going to start with my I. At the top of my I, I'm going to put A times C, and at the bottom, I'm going to put B. So my A is 1, my B is negative 10, and my C is 9. So I'm going to multiply A times C, so 1 times 9 gives me 9. My B value is negative 10. I need two numbers that multiply to give me 9, and add or subtract to give me negative 10. Well, factors of 9, I could do 3 and 3, but I can't combine those anyway to get me to 10. So I can try 9 and 1. If I make both of these numbers negative, negative 9 times negative 1 gives me a positive 9. So the top is taken care of. If I add them together, negative 9 minus 1, that gives me negative 10, so the bottom is taken care of. So my factored form, I'm going to take what I have in my I, and you're going to have x minus 9 times x minus 1 equals 0. To solve this, we're going to use zero product property, and I'm going to set each one of those factors equal to 0, or you can just think of it as flipping the sign. So if I solve this, this would give me x equals positive 9, and this one would give me x equals positive 1. That one is probably the hardest problem on your notes. I don't know that we're going to give you anything that difficult in your assignment because it involves a lot of different steps, but if you can do that, then you are set to go. Okay, so the next page, if you have the app installed or you go to the online resources, you can do it on the calculator. It's just finding an intersection point basically. So on your graphing calculator, you would just follow the steps on this page. All of you can read, all of you can look at it if you want to. I'll leave that up to you. Okay, so the very back page is using a calculator to solve it. Again, we're not going to grade this or look at it, so if you want to take the time and do the calculator steps, you can. But if you don't want to, then that's fine, because I know some of you may not have internet access or anything like that that would give you access to a calculator. So at this point, I want you to go back in this page of notes, and I want you to fill in all the problems that we didn't do. Once you're done with that, you can start working on your quizzes and your reflection questions. Those are the other 2 assignments that are due this week. Let us know if you need anything. Okay. Have a great day, and thanks for watching.